Hi, this week's topic is about writing pedagogy, specifically the topic of the 5-paragraph essay and kind of the debate between that structure, whether it's effective or not effective. So I'm currently reading the book by John Warner, Why They Can't Write. And in this book, he starts off in his introduction comparing writing to riding a bike. And so I thought about my own two boys and their kind of process and progress toward riding a bike, and it really was kind of a useful metaphor. So this is my son Blake with my guidance and support riding a bike, and then obviously he crashed when I was no longer holding his hand. Just like our standards talk about that guidance and support with those beginning foundation skills with the riding process, we need to talk about how riding and the use of training wheels kind of hinders our students. So we need to be able to prepare them for independence. So in his book, Warner says, why bother to learn to ride a bike without training wheels when the training wheels don't actually keep you from doing what you want to do anyway? We've learned over these intervening years that those training wheels were far more hindrance than help when it came to learning to ride a bike. So the reason training wheels actually prevent the young riders from that important skill of balance. So yes, they make riding easier and safer, but when young kids haven't spent quality focused time on the skill of balance in this case, it gives them that training wheel where they think they can do it and then you let go and then they can't. So giving students that training wheel with the 5-paragraph essay actively works against their ability to learn how to write. So he says the worst training wheels we can do with writing is to teach them that 5-paragraph essay. So usually with that basic outline, the first paragraph's the introduction with the thesis at the end, paragraph 2 is main point 1, paragraph 3 is main point 2, paragraph 4 is main point 3, and then your conclusion. And so he actually, in my speaker notes here, he talks about writing is to make choices. We need to figure out sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, what we want to write about. Our nation's school children are taught, and the way their learning is assessed deals with usually that 5-paragraph structure. So often our students are asked to do in school what isn't really authentic to the real world. We often judge student writing on their products, on this external assessment, when we usually don't look at their own creativity when it comes to good writing. Writing students are asked to do in school usually what's not in their best interest, and so we need to ask why we're having our students write. It's a process. It needs to be open, exploratory. It's a way for students to figure out what they have to say. Writing is a tool for thinking. So this is my progress of my son from training wheels to his bike, me holding on, letting go, and now he is able to do it independently when I took the training wheels away. So there are two sides to this debate. One article we have with Rowland, which we'll kind of look at in our discussion board, which talks about that deeply entrenched instructional habit. And kind of the issue with the 5-paragraph essay, it's the form, not the product. We teach it as a tool, and when we teach it as a tool, then we kind of lose that originality and style. Students lose their voice when they follow that structured pattern. But by itself, Warner says the 5-paragraph essay isn't necessarily a problem. It's kind of neutral. It's a tool of convenience and standardization. So that's kind of the role that it plays. All students need are the ideas to fill in the blanks. That's easy, especially for the purpose of passing standardized assessments. But the standardization makes it easier to assign it. It makes it easier for teachers to grade, especially when we have too many students. If there's no alternative, which oftentimes with the testing window there's not, teaching that is better than nothing. So #writers write. We need to teach them to write, give them voice, and sometimes that scaffold. So we're going to read this article, Slay the Monster, Replacing Form First Pedagogy with Effective Writing Instruction. And in this, Kathleen Rowlands kind of gives 6 specific strategies that are helpful. The first is to teach purpose, audience, and context, which is the rhetorical triangle. And for me, this is the number one kind of philosophical thinking that I do, as a teacher of writing, but also just as a teacher, as a presenter. I always want to think about this rhetorical situation. When we look at standard 3, which is critical reading and writing, students, those are the authors, they will write for varied purposes, and audience using all of the modes. And our 3 main modes in the standards are narrative, informative, and opinion argumentative. So students need to write with those 3 purposes, knowing who their audience is. And hopefully the audience is beyond us, the teacher, that they have an authentic way to share what their voice and what their interests are. They'll use fully developed ideas, organization, words, fluent sentences, and voice. Those are the 6 traits of writing, which is a really popular way to assess writing. In fact, the rubrics that we use will have those 6 traits with different kind of breakdowns of emphasis. But ideas is the most important. And if we're just having them fill in the blank outline, yes, we get strong organization, but kind of at the expense of that original thinking, that critical thinking that we want them to do with critical writing. Also, the third strategy Rowlands gives is to teach text structures, especially for informative writing. Knowing how a text is structured helps us to organize it, and then kind of that organizing gives us a different way to do our pre-writing or our graphic organizers. So some of the most common ways to organize a text is either to follow a description outline, to look at it in a process or sequential way, to define it, to do like a comparison, contrast, cause and effect, or problem solution. And based on the purpose and the organization of that writing, we kind of follow a different pattern, and it might not be a basic 5-paragraph outline. So if we teach them text structures, then we really do a good job of letting them do the thinking for their organization. So those are just a few thoughts on the 5-paragraph essay. You have your direction sheet for the discussion board. I hope that you reflect on your own experiences killing this 5-paragraph monster. Maybe it has helped you, maybe it has hindered you. But I know in teaching both middle school, high school, and college, I've seen the scaffolding, I've seen it be a hindrance, but I've also kind of seen it to be a starting point. So think about your own experiences regarding this writing pedagogy and how you support your students with guidance, and then how you also prepare them for independence.